Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I have another story in the Remarriage Club series today. I have here with me Gigi Muth, and Gigi is a life coach for perfectionists. Gigi, that sounds like me and a lot of other people I know. Welcome to the podcast. Please tell the listeners who you are and what you do.
Yes, as you said, I am a life coach for perfectionists, and those are for those of us who we like to live perfect, look perfect, and act perfect so that we can avoid blame, judgment, and shame. And I help people break out of that and find what of perfectionism is working well for them and what are those things that just aren't working as well. Sometimes when you're in that compare and despair or paralysis, which can be, analysis, which can be your paralysis. So I help
Yeah.
people with that.
Oh, that's so good. And I love that you like differentiate between the good parts, like how perfectionism can serve a person, and then identifying the areas where it doesn't. And that clarity, I'm sure, like can really catapult you to like a lot of success. So awesome. That work is so needed. Thank you for being willing to come on here today and share your story about your marriage, your divorce, and remarriage. And so you were married 23 years. You were happy. You had no problems, but then something happened in your family that really caused things to go in a different direction. I'm just going to hand it over to you and let you tell the listeners your story.
Yes, I was the type of person, being the perfectionist that I am. I, looked for the perfect man, had a great ex-husband, well, now my ex-husband, but a great husband, good father. And we have a daughter and a son together, and things were going well. And about into the 13th year of our marriage, our daughter at the time, she was 12, she started experiencing suicide ideation and attempted her first suicide. And at that time, all of our focus went into getting our daughter help and trying to figure out how to navigate this mental health crisis that we were going through. And I think that what we found is over the next 7 years, everything was about the children, and we didn't take the time maybe for the marriage because we were just such in survivor mode. And during that time, sad to say, after 7 years of a battle with mental health issues, my daughter did succumb to another suicide attempt that she did die from. And after that, I think it just really made us look at our marriage and where we were at and what we needed for our grief. And really, it was our grief that took us in different directions. My ex-husband became very withdrawn, very just isolated, and I really needed family. And at the time, we were living in California, and my family was back in Illinois. And so I proceeded to ask him, for a dissolution of our marriage, which was very hard because we both were very religious. And it wasn't something we ever wanted, but it was something that I think in ways we both needed. We both really learned that there was nothing that could bring our daughter back, and yet we needed to figure out a way to find some kind of happiness, some kind of, I don't know, love again, and love for life. And that's what we were both missing. And sometimes you can't always lift someone up when you're already down in the dumps. And so we just weren't the best partners for each other at that point. And it was made more sense just to walk away as friends. And so it's funny, I went to a divorce group and I'd hear all these awful stories about people that get divorced and how they hate their exes. And I don't. I have the utmost respect for my ex. I wish him the best. We are still friends. We still have a son that we co-parent who's over 18, but I still, there's still parenting that needs to be done. And, we had been together for so many years. So here I was, in my mid 40s, and oh my gosh, I'm in the dating world. I mean, when I started dating years ago, there wasn't even the internet, so like internet dating was like, I just couldn't imagine. And I was so scared.
Right. And I think you mentioned, like you were hearing all of these stories about all of these terrible exes going back in the pool. And you're like, wait, I put a really amazing guy in the pool.
Exactly. And the thing was, is that I put the amazing guy back in the pool in California, and here I am in Illinois. I went to like a meetup group that was for
Mhm.
divorced women, just trying to navigate getting back on your feet and establishing yourself again. And I mean, I
Yeah.
had basically gone from college to marriage, and now I'm like really having to stand on my own feet and figure it all
Mhm.
out for myself. And
Yeah.
so listening to them tell these stories of these exes, I'm like, this is what my dating pool is right here in the nearby
Right.
area. I was like, wow, you guys are very nice.
Yeah. So
Um,
how long after, because it's almost like you had to heal from two things in this scenario. Like you had to heal from your daughter's passing, and you had to heal from the divorce, which even if it was a good divorce, like that transition is a significant one. Plus you moved.
right. So basically, my daughter died in 2015. I
Mhm.
left in 2017 to come back to Illinois, and I did
Mhm.
not start dating until 2019. Our divorce was over in 2018. So,
Yeah.
and I will be quite honest, I didn't think I was going to date so soon. It wasn't something that I was ready to do per se, in
Mhm.
the sense of, oh my gosh, let's go do this. It was almost better because basically I did this, what's called the Camino de Santiago, which is this pilgrimage. I
Mm.
walked from um, in Portugal and Spain to this place called Santiago. And it was 172 miles. And I did it in 10
Mm.
days with my sister in law. And during that time, I really realized I'm not ready to date. And that was in like May of 2019. So
Mm.
I decided I'm going to date myself. And I came up with all these ideas of all of these things that as soon as I thought about doing by myself, I got very uncomfortable. And
Mm.
that's when I knew I needed to do it.
Yeah.
And so I went to the movies by myself. I actually took a class. It was a pole dancing class. Again,
Nice.
I posted a picture of myself in a swimsuit. Trying to love my body, love myself,
Mhm.
and really just go out there and do things that were not Gigi like. And to see, who am I and who do I want to be and what do I like? Because I think so many of us also in your marriage, if you're happily married, you still can get lost a little bit in
Yeah.
I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, and
Mhm.
sometimes you forget who you are. So I was
So
trying to
what were
find
you like when you said things were not, they were not Gigi like posting in a swimsuit, pole
I
dancing?
was
Like
always
what were you like before?
I was very much the perfectionist. If I didn't have the size 2 body, then who am I to be wearing a
Mm.
bathing suit or especially a bikini?
Yeah.
I was very much very black or white thinking, very much this is good, this is bad.
Right.
And I just wasn't very adventurous. And so I started to be a lot more adventurous. And during that time, I think that really just built my confidence. And I also did some exercises, more journaling type exercises during this time. One of the ones I did was, you imagine you're at like the boardroom, in a boardroom, and you invite all the people that have ever hurt you to this boardroom,
Mm.
and you go one by one and you forgive them for whatever they did. And this can be the kids in school that were, teased you about something, to the people that maybe had really hurt you in some way, either physically, mentally, whatever. And
Mhm.
I journaled about that and really just got a lot of that out. And it was amazing how many people came to mind that I had totally forgot about.
That's so
But as I was
powerful.
doing this, it really was just um, taking what I would say, I feel that we have like this backpack that we
Mhm.
hold all of this garbage in, all that
Mhm.
stuff that happens to you, you suppress it, you add more to it. I started unpacking a lot of that. And that really helped me. And I think also because I was going through the grief of losing a child, losing a marriage that I never expected, I figured we'd be always the type that we'd get through anything.
Mhm.
It was a good experience to just start looking at this like mindset. And that's where I became a life coach and I started studying about the change of thoughts and how our thoughts are what create what we have.
Mhm.
Um, because I wanted to find another. I wanted to be married. I liked being married. There was never this, oh, I don't like marriage. I was never bitter
Mhm.
from it. I liked having that partner in life.
Yeah.
And I knew that when I was ready, I wanted to be the best version of myself. Well,
Yeah, those are
unbeknownst to me,
powerful. So good. I love the exercises you described, and I'm sure that's going to be so helpful for so many people listening. Such good stuff.
yeah. And so what had happened is one day my son was mad at me. I forget, some other people were mad at me. I found out that my ex was dating already, and I was just
Mhm.
like, well, fine, maybe I'll do this. And my friend said she was doing her profile on Facebook. And I'm like, why are you doing a profile on Facebook? You have a profile on Facebook. And she goes, no, no, they have this new dating app. So I go on there. I have never been on a dating app before. I've never even
Mhm.
seen one, so I don't know what to expect. So I'm freaking out because if you like the guy, you had to do a heart or an X. I'm like, a heart? That's so
That's a
committal. I'm like, why not like a thumbs up or
right,
something, but a
right.
heart? So I'm like, oh my gosh. Then I don't understand this. And for any men that are out there listening, this is just my opinion, but when you post a lot of pictures with fish, and what I do know about fishing is fishing takes a lot of time. So if you keep showing me all these pictures with fish, you're just basically saying I'm never going to be around. And that wasn't what I was looking for. So I definitely did X's on the fish guys.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But I found that so interesting that at least in my age bracket, everybody was posting pictures of a fish. And first it'd be of one fish, and then it'd be of two fish, and then lots of fish. And I even asked some
The
girlfriends, and they're like,
fish.
oh, they're trying to show that they can provide for you. And I'm
Oh,
like, you
mm,
know, I don't see it that way. I see it as they're showing me they spend a lot of time fishing because that takes
that might be
time for
also,
those fish to bite. And these were
yeah,
not little fish.
right. And then how's it gonna smell when he comes home? I don't know.
Exactly. I didn't even go there, but that's a good point. No. So, and then the other thing I did is because I wasn't in this needy, graspy, I need a man's phase, because again, I was dating myself, I was having fun. I mean, I remember I kayaked down the Chicago River,
Mm,
which I did find out that was my first time kayaking by myself. It is nice to kayak with someone else because when you do get tired, it's nice to know they'll pick up the slack. But I was learning how to do these things, myself.
yeah.
And so when I did this, I put what I called a disclaimer in my actual bio, making sure that anybody who read this knew exactly what I wanted. And
Mm,
I'm very much, I would say, more a traditional type person, conservative. And so I put something like, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I've never done drugs. And
mhm.
I put it out there because I figured if that's what they're looking for, somebody to go hang out in the bars or go drinking or whatever, I'm the wrong person.
Right, right. It's
And
not being 100% authentic because a lot of and I did an episode on this on how to create a dating profile that works, which is a lot of women want a dating profile that attracts a lot of people. And I'm like, no, you don't want that because that's overwhelming and that will stress you out meeting all these people who don't match what you're looking for. You want a dating profile that attracts the exact person that you're looking for.
and so I wound up seeing a picture of a guy that had this really cute smile. And even though I was mostly just doing hearts and X's and not commenting, this one person I did comment and said, like your smile. And
Mm,
that was on a Sunday, and I didn't hear anything from that individual. And I wound up talking with a couple other gentlemen and realized by Tuesday, no, I'm not ready for this dating.
mm.
This is just not a good idea. They either would come out too strong, too fast, or it was too
Mhm,
hard to start up the conversation, or whatever the reason was, I was done.
mm.
But again, back to this individual, I never heard from him. So I got rid of everybody, deleted everyone except for him. And I decided I'm going to try one more time. Something about this smile just really touched my heart. And I said, I know that was such a corny thing for me to say, but I really do like your smile. And
It was so corny. I'm going to say it again.
exactly, I know. I was just like, hey, I'm going to be authentic. He's going to either think this
No,
is,
I
and
love
so
it.
it wound up he wound up actually writing the next day, apologized that he hadn't written, but his work schedule was that he works Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and he
Mm.
knows that things like this take time. And so he knew he just didn't have the time. So he wrote
Mhm.
me on Wednesday, and we went on our first date the following Monday. And a year later, we got engaged, and another year later, we got married.
Oh my
And so now
goodness.
we are happily married.
How long have you been
Um,
married now?
we've been married now for about 5 months. And
So you're newlyweds.
yep, we're
I
newlyweds, and
love
we're
it.
learning how to navigate blended families because I have a son
Yeah.
and he has 4 daughters, and how that all works. They're all
Mhm.
primarily grown, so it's not like any children at home. But it was funny. I joke about certain things with him. Like, I say that if I ever do this again, which I don't plan on, I'm going to ask for credit reports, because I have found that there are people out there that their credit's not as good as yours. I
Right.
am going to get references from their children so that I can see what their kids are like, in addition to the spouse.
Yeah.
Um, but
Um,
no, it was one of these situations that we both knew what we wanted, and
mhm.
we just work well together, and we take a very
Yeah.
much a team approach to things. And I think that that's something, again, that I had learned from maybe my first marriage, is that I wasn't always a good team player. I think a lot of times
Mhm.
that perfectionism and that need to control would get in the way.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I have definitely learned to be more present, to be more a team player, to be more
Mhm.
thoughtful. And that has really carried this new relationship, a long way also.
Yeah. So how did you, what made you recognize that that perfectionism impacted your first relationship? Like, was that in therapy or just working through the healing journals like you did?
Um, I actually, my perfectionism took me on a very bumpy path. And it was my perfectionism actually led to my own suicide attempt a couple of years actually before we lost my daughter. And I,
Mm,
and with that, I did an outpatient program, so therapy basically, that
okay.
really addressed this idea that perfectionism can be a neuroses. It's not just a characteristic, and it can, what again, if you think of the things where it doesn't serve you, and if you become, like, for example, black or white, and you're
Mhm.
not ever gray, that can be an actual problem in your work, in your relationships, wherever. And so, not to say that anybody who has perfectionist tendencies has, the neurotic form
Mhm.
of it, but just to check in with yourself. Is this
Yeah.
serving me? Is this getting me what I want? Is this, and if it's not, then what can I do to tone it down, to figure out how to work better with it? And
Mhm.
I just didn't realize that. I thought perfectionism, the thing that motivated me to do such a good job and be such a high achiever, in some ways was the same thing. So I started to
Yeah.
see some of these things, but it really wasn't until I lost my daughter that that
Mhm.
really uncovered another form of vulnerability. And I think that that's something that with perfectionism, we're all, I mean, why are we trying to control? To protect ourselves, because we have this
Yeah.
idea about a worthiness and good enough. And
Mhm.
it really wasn't until I became a life coach that I was presented with ideas that, Brene Brown and some other people talk about out there, about this idea that you're 100% worthy no matter what you do. I think
Yes.
I always thought I achieve, therefore I am. And it really
Yeah.
wasn't until I got more into the life coach world that I started seeing these ideas that, no, I am because I am.
Yes, just because you exist. You're 100%
Exactly.
worthy, 100% lovable just because you exist. Thank you for sharing that so vulnerably. I know that helps a lot of people. Like, it's just it's hard to find spaces where these conversations are being had around, like, because perfectionism is so rewarded in the culture, right? Which church or corporation doesn't love that person who shows up to dot all the I's and cross all the T's and overwork and all of that? And so because there's sort of a cultural reward for it, it can be hard for the individual to see, oh, no, this is destroying me, even though everyone loves that I am this way. And when I went through codependency recovery after my divorce, and that resonates with me because there was this, I guess my issue was just a lot of shame, where there was my ideal self that I thought I wanted to be and kept striving to be. And then there was who I really was. And because at any time that I realized that there was a gap between who I was and my ideal self, I would just experience so much shame. Right. And it's what we do with that emotion of shame that, spills out on our family around us or on our friends, or sort of motivates the actions that we then take. So for me, I just kept like striving and working and making sure everyone's grades were up, and just to prevent any gap between that ideal and how we were living. So I definitely resonate with going through like thinking that there's a person out there that I'm supposed to be other than who I am.
Yes, and I think that also sometimes with perfectionism, we tend to put a lot of pressure on our partners. So even though I told you my first husband, is a great person, I was constantly judging him and judging myself. And so I was coming up short sometimes because he was neater than I was, or he was coming up short. And I was also looking for him to complete me. And so by going through that process of dating myself and finding out what I like and what I don't like, I was much able to come to this relationship not with all those expectations. I didn't have those 20-year-old, stars in my eyes.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say I was over 50. We're both over 50. We had been both through a longevity relationship, marriage for many years. So we came with a little bit more perspective of this is what I want and what's the negotiables and what are the non-negotiables. And,
Yeah.
and I think that was being open to that. Whereas I think because I was young and I was um, immature in a way and didn't understand, I kept thinking that when I was unhappy, even the times in my first marriage when, it had its rocks and bumps along the way that were us, not just the kids. But I always thought it was, well, you're not loving enough. You're not like the Hallmark movies. You don't, you're not bringing me flowers. You don't bring me candy. It was always
Yeah.
what he wasn't doing. And what I really wasn't doing is I wasn't very good at the self-care myself. And that's
Yeah.
something that I really have found is self-care has really become something. And even if it's just for 15 minutes, I try to do things for myself so that I'm not relying on someone else, because you won't find your happiness in someone else. But
100%.
I'll tell you, I tried for
I
years.
tried really hard.
Never, it never worked.
If anyone was gonna get it done, it was gonna be you.
Exactly. I thought I could do it, but I really have found, and that's why when I feel that when people tell you when you get married and they tell you don't forget date night, I think that date night is also a self-care, but it's a
Yeah.
self-care in the sense of for your marriage. So if you think of
Yes.
yourself, then your spouse as a person, and then almost like make your marriage a third person. One
100%.
of those needs a little bit of self-care. So you
Yes.
need to take time for yourself. They need to take time for themselves. And then the marriage also needs something. And that was something that I remember hearing it through the years, but I'm like, but you don't know my children, or you don't know what's going on at home. And now with this marriage, at least, maybe because we don't have the kids, it's a little bit easier, but we really do make sure that we take time for the two of us together.
Yes, that is
And if
so,
it's
so
just,
good.
it sometimes it's a quick little trip, and sometimes it's just watching a movie together, and sometimes it's just talking about things like not the family, but just, beliefs, ideas, dreams.
I call it the logistics. I always tell my husband, I was like, we've had a lot of logistical conversations this week. I'm not feeling the like deeper conversations. And so we know when we're in the logistics mode, which you have to have that. You got to plan, you got to merge your calendars, you got to, and
Right.
then being able to notice when, oh, hey, we're not having those little flirty, deeper, dreaming together type conversations, and raising that awareness and making time for them.
Right. And I highly encourage that because I I find that, like I said, we're talking anywhere from 5, 10, 15 minutes is all you need to really get that connection.
Yeah.
And I think we all can find that. if not on a daily basis, every other day with our significant other, because I do believe that if possibly, and I think things happen the way they were supposed to, but possibly in my situation, if maybe my first marriage, we would have done more of those things,
Mm-hmm.
we might have been able to navigate the grief better
Yeah.
together. It
Yeah.
didn't work out that way. We're both happy where we're at. So, I'm not going to fight with what is,
Mm-hmm.
but I do know that it possibly could have helped us along the way a lot. And we could have been there a little bit better for each other.
Right. And now all of those lessons are helping you both where you are now. So,
Yes, and I
it's
mean, and hindsight is always, 2020. So of
right,
course
isn't
everything
it?
changes now. But that's the beauty of, I think, hindsight. I will tell you is
Mhm.
I have gone back to my ex-husband, as because I didn't become a life coach until we were already divorced, until we were, already separated and everything. And I have gone back and I have apologized for where
Mm.
I felt that maybe I did come short and, you know, maybe wasn't the best partner I could have been. And I think that's the beauty, is being able to go back to someone if you are in that space and you feel you can, and admit your flaws, because
Mhm.
it makes me a stronger person. And I think it makes our relationship better because he honors that vulnerability.
Yeah.
He's like, wow, that takes a lot for her to say that,
Yeah.
because I don't need to say anything to him at this point.
Right. And you owning your part doesn't mean you own everything that happened in
Oh,
the
no,
relationship
not at all. I'm
either.
only owning
Yeah.
that I could have done things better, and now I
Yeah.
see it. And I think that that's what I'm most owning, is I see it now. Because there were things that he used to maybe say or do, and I would be like, that's not me. This is all you. And now I saw, like I saw how the perfectionism was putting so much pressure on him. Who wants
Yeah.
to be that person that feels like they have to complete you all the time?
Yes.
And now I realize the only one that can complete me is me.
100%. That is so good. I wanted to ask you a little bit about your what in my coaching program I call them milestones. So like when you meet someone and maybe you're dating, and I know you didn't date a lot of people before you met your husband, you're dating 2 or 3 people and you finally say, oh, this is the one that I think I want to create a commitment with. So that's kind of how my program goes. I encourage my ladies to date, explore, pick someone after going through, like, we have a whole thing that we do. And then, so now when you're with this one person, the work doesn't end. And I think there's a temptation once you're sort of like in that exclusive relationship with someone to stop working on the relationship, to assume that, okay, this is it. 6 months from now, we're going to get married. But when I hear your story, it sounds like you and your current husband did some work, because you talked about teamwork over the period of a year before you got married, or
So
before you
for
got
us,
engaged, actually.
yeah, a year we were
Yeah.
a year, we dated for a year before we got engaged.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually got the blessing of COVID, and I don't mean the actual the disease. We didn't get sick. Well, my husband at one point did, but no. So most people talk about, COVID and how awful it was. We
Mm-hmm.
actually found it to be very good for our relationship. It gave us a chance to be able to do things together and explore things. And some of the things were home renovations. And
Mm.
believe me, learning how to renovate a house together and navigating the who takes the lead and who doesn't, and how it all works, is a great way to work on your relationship.
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
it's a great problem solving. And
Yeah.
COVID also put it in. I was working from home, which then I just started sort of being at his house more, working here. So when he got home from his job, we were able to spend a lot more time together. And for us,
Mm-hmm.
that time was really, we used it to the best of our abilities. And I think it gave us time to explore things. At the time,
Mm-hmm.
I had already written the book prior to meeting him, but I started editing a book I wrote about perfectionism. And we started like talking about things and dreams and what we wanted for our children and what we wanted for ourselves. And we really just, again, it was probably a lot of life coaching. I was just like using him as my little subject.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Well, you were sharing what you were learning, and he was open to that. You can't life
Exactly.
coach someone by force. Like, it doesn't matter how
Oh
hard
no,
you
no, no,
try.
no. No.
You
But
know?
but he was so open to it, and he loved that about me, and he loved that part of me, and of course that just made me want to like come out more about it, you know. So
Yeah.
he enjoyed that type of thinking, that positive thinking, and that mentality, and that, you know, abundance versus scarcity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it was really, though, I will say COVID, because I think without COVID, we would have been probably more, you know, see each other a couple of times during the week and go on a
Mm-hmm.
couple of dates. And again, that was the other thing is when you're dating someone, and I'm talking about traditional dates, which are dinners, movies, whatever, are you
Mm-hmm.
really getting to know that person? Because you're
That's
putting on your
right.
best outfit, you're putting on your best personality, you
You're going
know,
to this
you're
fancy place where the ambiance creates a lot of emotion and connection for you.
right. But, you know, we had to navigate like finding television shows we liked because you couldn't go to the movies. So
Mm-hmm.
we would have to discuss like, well, I like this and I like that. And we would get into shows together, you know, like whatever was on Netflix or whatever. And then we talk about it
Mm-hmm.
because there was, you figure you became, especially in the beginning of COVID, a pod. And, you know, you only were with your pod, whatever your
Mm-hmm.
people, you know, and that was it. So he became one of my people, and we pretty much had this like really small group of people. So it wasn't like you were seeing family. You weren't, you know, you had to
Mm-hmm.
even do Easter by yourself if you
Yeah, I
celebrate
think it
that.
was
You know,
like
there
10
was
or less in most places, including your, your immediate family.
right. Well, if you remember that first few weeks, you know, that first March, and even I think through Easter, everything was shut down. So you couldn't
Yeah.
even go to a restaurant. You couldn't even, you know, we literally couldn't do anything except see each other.
Yeah.
Um, and
What you're
so
describing is kind of like what I have my clients do is put together their own milestones. Like, you need to see this person in all of these situations. There's a ton of situations that you need to observe them in, and we put together this list. What about, when you meet his family? And if you're not ready to meet his parents, what about siblings? Like, we create sort of like this journey that they go through from after being exclusive to when you can say, yes, I've seen enough of the facets of this human to be able to make a decision about a commitment. But then there's so many people who are dating online, and they're like, they've seen each other once a week or twice a month, and they say, oh, I'm dating him, I've been dating him for 8 weeks, but you've seen him 3 times in 8 weeks. You're like, technically this is like an acquaintance.
right. And I think that that's what COVID basically, it was able to speed up our timeline in a way
Yeah.
because we were spending every day together and we were seeing each other every day. So we used to joke that, you know, we just a few weeks into our like, or not a few weeks, a few months into our relationship, we were like our 25th wedding anniversary. For as much of the
Yeah, that's
stuff as we
funny.
had done together, you know,
Mm-hmm.
we were definitely um exclusive from the beginning, and we
Mm-hmm.
just ran with it. And
Yeah.
then we also, during COVID, we did do some traveling when we could. And that also was good to find out like what kind of things you like to do when you're traveling. And
Mm.
again,
Traveling with someone will show you a lot about them. My husband and I discovered a lot about each other on our first road trip.
oh my gosh, it is so funny. I still joke. Okay, so we travel, we even left, we left about 3 weeks ago. We went to Florida for 50 hours, 2 days.
Mm.
We brought one suitcase, a big suitcase. If he would have had his choice, we would have had two suitcases because he believes not only do we not pack, but we just take half of our wardrobe and we put it in the suitcase with the um the hangers. I'm
With
like,
the hangers.
no, you know, and of course my perfectionist, no, we got to roll it all. And I even have the cute little cubes you put it in, you know, you zip it up in and everything, all organized. But you know what? I still love him because
Yes.
I think as I shared with you earlier when we were talking before this interview, we had a really interesting experience actually on our honeymoon. So we had a honeymoon planned. We originally were going to go take a cruise in Italy, but because of COVID, we had to cancel that. And
Mhm.
so we decided, okay, we're going to go to a timeshare that my parents have in Mexico for a week. And then we're going to just take a short little Bahamas cruise. So we just basically had to get from Mexico on a Friday and make sure that we were in Florida by Saturday.
Mhm.
Shouldn't be a problem. Well, due to a maintenance issue on the plane, we did not make it to our cruise, our Bahamas cruise.
Mm,
And this is again one of those moments. Now we're already married at this point, so we're in it for
yeah.
life. But it was definitely a test to how do we handle things? Because
Mm-hmm.
again, I'm the planner, he's the let's wing it. And
Yeah.
I really had to step back and just take that approach of let's wing it, because
What are
all
you
of
gonna
our
do?
plans within, a couple of hours of finding out that this jet wasn't getting us out of Mexico in time, and it's not like you can drive from Mexico to Florida. And it
Mm-hmm.
was like, okay, we're just not going on our cruise, we'll do it a different day.
Yeah.
And it was really a good test to how we handled stress, because it was also stressful for him. He was sad. He really wanted to be on this cruise. It was this new ship. It had a cool roller coaster on top of it. I mean, we were so excited. But he also felt bad because he saw me so sad, and he knew that I really
Mm,
wanted to do this. So he was like trying to comfort me, and yet I was trying to comfort him. And it all worked out. And we went to Florida for a week. We still took our flight when we eventually got it to Florida. Had the best week, visited family and
mm,
friends, have a story to laugh about and talk about, and we're fine.
yeah. That's
But it was all our
amazing.
talk about it. That was definitely a mindset thing. If we,
Yes.
because I mean, seriously, there was a part of me that would have like just wanted to sit there right in the airport when we found out and just like cry, be like,
Yeah.
"Wah."
Yeah. And I love that I keep hearing you talk about like this ongoing growth and like the dating after divorce and remarriage after divorce, this whole journey of those of us who have gotten a divorce, I think can just really set us on a path of just continuing to grow, like just infinitely growing until the end. Because if we embrace
Definitely.
it with that mindset, we have so many opportunities that we can use to grow and just become the best versions of ourselves.
I think if you go in with that and you are willing to grow and you are willing to be the best version of yourself, I think that you will find you will get so much more out of it. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I also went in with it that I didn't I tried not to bring any baggage from my first marriage with. And what I mean
Mm,
is there were things that my ex-husband doesn't do perfectly. I mean, he's a good guy and everything, but I didn't try to be like, well, expect my second husband to do things that I'm used to him doing perfectly. My first husband, like I
mm,
said, my first husband's very, very neat. My second husband, not so much. But
right.
that was okay, you know, and and vice versa, like there's things about my second husband that are I like better than my first husband. So, but
Yeah.
not sitting there and comparing or expectations. Because I think sometimes, especially when we've been hurt from a relationship, so, for example, say if I would have walked away from my first marriage because maybe there was some type of betrayal or something, I
Mm-hmm.
could be carrying around this resentment towards men, or this
Mm-hmm.
resentment towards, this ex husband that could then carry into another relationship. So, I really
Mm-hmm.
tried not to carry any of
Yeah.
that. Um,
Yeah.
I don't
It's the
negative
thinking, just
energy.
thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just thoughts that
the
create
negative
that.
energy, the thoughts, and
Yeah.
I didn't judge this person. I remember my mom actually, though, my first husband's a handyman. He's actually a builder. And so my mom said to my current husband, she's like, um, do you know how to fix things? And he's like, no, that's not my thing. And she's like, oh, and she was all like disappointed. And I was like,
Just like I had 23 years of having my stuff get fixed.
right. But you know what? The beauty of it is for 23 years I had this man who, yes, he could fix everything, but he wouldn't let me paint because he could do it better, and so he didn't want me
Mm.
to mess it up. This man lets me paint. Now you can't see any pictures right now, but believe me, the ceiling has some paint smudges on it. My first husband would have never been able to live in this room. He'd be like freaking
Yeah.
out. This husband, that's okay, Gigi
Yeah.
painted it, and that's what happens when Gigi paints. There's smudges on the ceiling. And
Yeah.
it was nice to
Yeah.
have that. But if
Yes.
I would have come in with the attitude of, oh my gosh, every man afterwards, like, so there were good things about somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it would have been nice if maybe my second husband was a handyman, but he's not. But there's other things. He makes me laugh like I have never laughed.
Yeah.
And I
That's
would much rather have that
beautiful.
at the end of the day.
I love that. I love that so much. So, what is the next growth point or the next growth item for your family, your new family?
So I'm really trying to navigate where I fit in with my 4 stepdaughters and how this
Mhm.
works. And I see that that is something we are looking at in the next year or so, selling the family house and just downsizing. And I can see that the girls are having a little bit of anxiety around this.
Mhm.
Even though they don't live here, I think there's that, they've been here their whole lives. This is where they were either born or they've been here since a small child, and not
Mhm.
totally understanding that it's, you know, houses as you get older, they're just a lot of upkeep. And we want a
Mhm.
more, I would say, transient style in the sense that we want to
Mhm.
be able to travel more and not have to worry about shoveling snow or worrying about the
Mhm.
lawn and all those things. So trying to figure out how to navigate that, I think is something that's new for us and where I fit in. And um, I think the girls are
Yeah.
having a hard time, even though when I met my husband, um, he had already been separated for 5 years, already divorced for over a year before we even met. So now it's been a
Mhm.
couple of years since the divorce. But I think the girls are still missing what they thought was their family.
Yeah, yeah, and I can see that. I mean, like even my family is similar in the sense that I had teenagers and my husband's son, was a young adult in college. We get to date our partner. We get to spend all these hours and hours and hours and hours with them, but we're trying to create a relationship that's almost as bonded, or we think about it as, and that dating process with stepchildren just takes a lot longer because they don't get all of those hours with us.
Yes, exactly. So, and I've gotten to the point that I don't expect them. They don't have to like me. I think they do. I mean, to a point.
Mhm.
Um, they don't have to think that I'm the best for their dad, meaning maybe
Mhm.
they think their mom is the better one for their dad. But I want them to respect what I am to their dad because I am good to
Mhm.
their dad. And I've come to that. And that's what I want. And I want it. What I love that we have like family dinners and we all get together and we all laugh and it's all
Mhm.
great. And maybe one day they call me mom. Yes, I would love all of that. Am I going to get that? I don't know. And
Right.
and
That's the
I've had
that's
to
the journey. That's the journey to see what grows out of where you are. And you
and
can't.
I think that that's one thing that I didn't know, that I walking into this relationship, as much as I had done so much work on myself, I didn't realize how much I wanted the family again, as much as I just wanted
Mm,
a husband. And because of that, um, that is something that I am having to navigate now,
yeah.
and give up that dream and let it organically happen. I think that
Yes.
that was something, I think I was trying to force it first, and now I'm just trying to take a step back and let things organically happen.
Yeah. Well,
And
you've done such an amazing job with your growth and healing journey that I have so much confidence that you'll be back here
oh,
talking about blended families on the podcast.
yes, I would love to. I hope, I will definitely say one of the things that my husband did, my current husband did, that was so sweet is he not only asked my parents for my hand in marriage, even though, I mean, I was, like I said, 50 years old, but anyway, but he actually asked my sons also. And I think that really helped in his relationship with my son. So him and my son are
Mm,
fairly close. Um, he didn't ask his girls though. And so
mm,
if I have any advice for anyone out there, when you're looking at this getting married, that really you should get your family's buy-in, not necessarily do they have to approve, but let them know. And I think his
right.
girls, because again, you go back to the point you say, they don't see how much time. So even though we spent a
Mhm.
whole year together, like almost 24/7, it seemed like, because of COVID, they
Mhm.
only saw me a couple of holidays. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
because of that, they didn't realize how close we had become. They didn't see
Mm,
all of the things we had tackled together. And
yeah.
um, when we got to engaged, they were very shocked and they were like, wow, whoa, this is fast.
Yeah.
And and we're thinking, oh my gosh, we're 50 some years old. We don't have like our whole lives.
Yeah, that's
Like,
such great advice, Gigi. Like, that is excellent advice
to bring
for
them in,
everyone.
and again, you don't have to do what they want, but at least you knew, because he honestly didn't even know his girls were as upset about the divorce until
Mhm.
we got engaged, and then it came out more how upset they were. And I
Yeah.
think it was probably something they just never talked about per se.
Mhm.
And they weren't they're not like drama type girls. I don't think they're like really feely type, girls. So
Mhm.
I don't think they told their dad all of their feelings.
Right.
And so he didn't know. And I think that if he would have had the conversation, I'm thinking of asking Gigi, I think that they would have
Mhm.
told him he could still decide for himself what he wants to do. But I think everybody would have been a little bit on the same level playing field, knowing where people stand.
Right. It's like the element of surprise just adds just a little bit, just more emotion to the
Right, exactly. So that they
situation.
they would have had a little bit more time. And so I highly encourage people, and especially even if you're thinking about it, let your children know. I mean, if you're
Mhm.
really thinking about it, then I'm assuming that you've already invited the children into the relationship. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I would really encourage that in addition to that, you let them know where you're at. Because I think if he would have possibly, even along the time, even though they weren't seeing me as much, said more things about, oh my gosh, I'm having so much fun with Gigi, or we're doing so many great
Mhm.
things together, or I love the fact how we work things out, just those little things, not in any way to say she's better than your mom, but just
Mhm.
letting them know how he felt about me and
Yeah.
how we work together and
Yeah.
where
So
the
good.
relationship is going.
Yeah. Gigi, oh my gosh, thank you so much for coming on and sharing this story, from the grief and the pain that you experienced with the passing of your daughter to the divorce and your growth journey. You have been such a gift, so vulnerable, so open, and I know it's going to be such a blessing to the listeners. Thank you so much for coming on. Could you please tell everyone again what you do and where they can find you if they want to connect with you?
Sure. Again, my name is Gigi Muth, now Gigi Morosic. But you can find me at embracethehope.com. That is my website that has information about the book that I talked about, Perfectionism. It
Mhm.
talks about my life coaching. And really, I just want to leave everyone, I want to be an example of what is possible.
Mm,
You can feel like you almost have lost everything, and yet you can find still some happiness, some laughter, some fun in life.
yeah.
And so I encourage all of your listeners to just be open to whatever is possible.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Gigi. We're going to link up all of Gigi's links in the show notes. So go ahead and scroll and click connect with Gigi. Thank you all listeners for your time and attention. If you are looking to date after divorce, make sure you go to the show notes and click in there for my free dating course. And I just want to thank you for your time and attention today. And I will see you next time.